Um, I'm with Jacques Dufault, who is a friend and former colleague in the Foreign Service. And Jacques was on the management side, and he was very successful in managing large and difficult posts. And one of the reasons was because he was known for his sense of fairness and what was correct and what wasn't. And he's carried over the sense of fairness into his retirement, and he writes excellent letters to the press, pointing out cases that are not fair. And he also, in other parts of his life, he tries to make things work a little bit more fairly. And in one particular area, I'm very impressed because Jacques believes that the police should respect their laws, our laws. And so many of us, like myself, they see a cop going through, coasting through a stop sign or not using his signals. We say, well, that's life, but not Jacques. Jacques, you haven't gotten into trouble with this kind of going after the cops?
Bonjour. No, as a matter of fact, it worked very well. But I must say, you were saying that I was a fair and just administrator. Not always, because it depends where one serves. And when I had the hierarchy, hierarchy like yourself, Brian, it was easier. Because that sentiment that I had to be shared with my bosses, and it was, most of the time, I must say. As regards the police, well, it's a long story, and I'll try to make it as short as I can. My last posting was native Brussels. As you know, in Europe, we drive pretty much the way we want, fast.
Sure.
The speed limit is 130 in France, for example, and 120 in Belgium, and they're agitating to have it higher. So we drive quite fast, and I came back in '95, imbued with this sense of speed, naturally, and it took about 10 days for me to get 2 tickets. Expensive ones too, but I deserved them. No problem.
Yeah, that was fair.
You know, when you're doing 105 kilometers in a 60 zone, you can't say, "Oh, it's not true. I'm going to see these guys who fight on our behalf." I mean, I was caught, and that was it, and I let it go. Years passed by as I got accustomed to Ottawa again. I had been abroad for 30 years, consecutive almost. Then I noticed that these police cruisers on the Queensway, for example, were exceeding the limit. 120 is okay, it's tolerated, but they were going 140, 150 without sirens and without their
lights going.
Their lights on. And I said to myself, that's illegal. So one day I decided to tail them, and I did, right to the police station on 10th Line Road. I must say I got a bit of satisfaction because it was my turn. But to see the surprise on the guy's face when I asked him for his name and his number, he said, "Why?" I said, "You were speeding." Well, he said, "How do you know?" Well, I said, "I was going 120 and you passed me like I was standing still." Well, he said, "Then you were going 120, you were over the speed limit." I said, "Can you prove it?" Well, I said, "I can prove you were going fast." Anyhow, I reported him to a superior sergeant, I forget what his name was, who called me back and said that he had been reprimanded. Well, I did this. You know, they talk about fair employers or equal opportunity employers. I'm an equal opportunity arrester. I stopped some RCMP, OPP, and Ottawa police.
Oh. But you know, Jack,
my wife got nervous after a while.
Well, this is it. I think most of us think, well,
she's even nervous about this interview, thinking that maybe the police will see it. But anyhow, I digress.
And they recognize you. But I think most of us think, well, you know, you should be maybe buying tickets to the policeman ball. You should be sort of getting, because these people can, you know, the cops can enforce the laws strictly on you, but you haven't had any fallback from
Absolutely not. I think I gave credit to the police for that. I don't think we can do that. At least I gave them the benefit of the doubt. But I have been a good voice since then. I've been speeding a bit, but I'm looking out quite far ahead of myself. I didn't know this. One time I got stopped meeting a police car, and I didn't know they had radar that could clock you while meeting you in traffic at a certain speed, but now I know they do.
Oh, so you mean their car can be moving and they
It's
can
moving
still...
and it's coming towards you, and they can tell how fast you're going.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you should know that too.
No, I haven't had a ticket for a while.
Well,
Huh.
I've had 4 since I came back, and
Mhm.
my demerit points were up to 9.5, I think, and you only have 12, and it was warrant.
Yeah.
But I accepted that. When you're guilty, you're guilty. That's
Yeah.
it. But I feel that the police, the onus is on them to be better than us. Because
Well, I
they're
think
supposed
so,
to
yeah.
set an example, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think all of us see, what sort of bothers me is the sort of the drifting through the stop sign, the not using the signals.
Over the white lines, yes.
Yeah, it just that we'd like to think that the police would be an example rather than taking the attitude, well, because I'm the police, I don't really have to do these things.
Exactly. But you know, I'll tell you something. I was talking to you about sense of integrity a few minutes ago before we went on air. And integrity is one thing. I'm not the perfect person to boast about integrity. For example, I'll tell you this. I'm doing this in Ottawa. We would do it throughout Canada because our police is pretty good. They're fair.
Oh, sure.
I don't think I would be stopping the cops in Alabama, for example,
No.
or in Switzerland, or anywhere like that, because they would get me.
Yeah.
If they didn't get me then, they would get me later. Here I can do it because I think we have a pretty good police force.
It's a very good
But as I say, integrity is one thing, but I wouldn't do it in certain places.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're very lucky with the police force we have. On the other hand, it would be nice to think that if more people like you, followed the police and said, you went through that stop sign, it would be nice if you set an example. I mean, that would make it even better.
I think it would make it even better, but I hesitated telling him that because it's abuse of power is something that is visceral. I think they've got that, and there's no way to convince them, even our good police forces, that that's an abuse of power. That they have no right to do it any more than I do. Even less, as I said before, because
Sure.
They have this, I think it's worse for a lawyer to be crooked than for a non-lawyer. Although this is a can of worms.
This could,
This could degenerate.
Yeah, it's probably we're getting close to the point where we should stop. Jacques follows the police and insists that they follow the law. I think we should do it too. Thanks, Jacques, very much.
My pleasure.
Great.